Hi, I'm Tom Coolidge, Esri's Pipeline Industry Manager. Along with my colleagues Jeff Allen and Vanessa Ramirez, welcome to the first webinar in Esri's 2017 Pipeline Webinar Series. You may have heard that earlier this week Esri introduced its new brand, The Science of Where. The Science of Where reflects Esri's commitment to geoscience and to innovating the great technologies that harness it so that you can continue to create the maps that run the global pipeline industry. Today's seminar focuses on one of those innovations, exploring the power of simple mapping. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted in the next few days. You will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording. Before we get started, I would like to encourage you to post your questions in the GoToWebinar Questions dialog box during the presentation. We will answer as many questions as time permits after the webinar. Now, please welcome my colleague, Jeff Allen.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jeff, and I'll be taking us through the slides portion of the webinar today, exploring the power of simple mapping. So when I first think about people who utilize maps, I think about all the GIS professionals in the organization. And these professionals have a vast array of tools available to them to enable sharing and collaboration of GIS data across the organization. With the ever-expanding capabilities of these systems, though, we often overlook the capability to enable mapping for those in our organization who may not use maps on a daily basis. We believe enabling these non-GIS professionals to utilize geospatial data in their everyday workflows is a key component to a successful Esri platform deployment. Today we'll explore the key aspects of the Esri platform and discuss ways to enable stakeholders within your organization to leverage simple mapping workflows to maximize your investment in our technology. One advantage of the platform is that users never have to start with a blank map anymore. Gone are the days of pulling up ArcMap with that white screen. With ready-to-use maps, users can focus on their specific business data. By overlaying that data on a wealth of existing maps, users quickly and easily can create new authoritative content within the platform. The hundreds of maps and data layers are organized into what we refer as a living atlas. So let's take a closer look at what's included in this living atlas out of the box. First, the Living Atlas offers a wide range of reference maps for the context of your work. These reference maps are built from authoritative content and are presented in multiple cartographic styles. Users can select from a wide range of base maps that best represent the data that they're trying to display. Next, the Living Atlas includes imagery layers that can be added to any map. The World Imagery layer is currently being updated with new content acquired through our subscription agreement with Digital Globe. This multi-year subscription represents more than 200 square kilometers of updated imagery from Digital Globe's Vivid and Metro products. These updates have already started flowing into the World Imagery base map layer, and more are on their way. In addition to the base maps, we include a wide variety of vector mapping layers. One example is the Boundary and Places layer that can be utilized in conjunction with your authoritative pipeline layer. In addition to simply adding these layers to the map, these layers can be used in analysis workflows, such as mileage and regulatory reporting. By combining this rich content with specific business data, the platform gives non-GIS professionals the ability to create their own maps for their own specific needs. This self-service mapping capability can immediately increase productivity as well as free up valuable GIS staffing resources from day-to-day map operations. Users can discover existing content, combine it with existing maps, and then add their own authoritative content to generate new useful information products to aid in their daily work. We've also included in the map-making workflow the concept of smart mapping. Smart mapping analyzes your data and suggests the best way to represent it on the map. Users can further style their maps by accessing the hundreds of settings available in the platform. By implementing the named user security model, you can control how these maps are stored and shared within the platform. This allows users to maintain their own key maps, share maps with the appropriate groups, and allows management of the content such that key information products can be shared with the appropriate stakeholders within the platform. The platform also includes a rich set of administrative features that give you complete control of the content users within the system. You can assign custom roles, privileges to users, such that the appropriate content is controlled within the organization and shared appropriately. Regardless if the platform is designed for 1 or 1,000 users, it's designed to scale with the organization. Both from a licensing and IT perspective, you can easily add resources to the platform to ensure that it grows to match your organization's adoption rate. This agile approach can combine both on-premise and cloud-based solutions. So we're going to show you a demo now of what this self-service mapping all is about. So I'm going to switch it over to Vanessa, and she's going to show you a demo of how to build some maps on the platform.
Thank you, Jeff. So as my screen comes up here, you should see what we call a kind of a sample portal. So like Jeff was saying, our primary goal is really to enable people within the organization to have access to data and maps without having to be GIS professionals. So you can really think of this portal page as your destination for everything location within the organization. So people, the same way they go to SharePoint to look for a document, or perhaps iTunes to search for a song, you would come here to find any mapping information specific to your organization. So there's a few things I want to point out. The first is you'll notice I actually have this skinned with my own logo, my own image, right? I can give the portal my own look and feel. So you can configure it with your company colors and your company look. The other is I have a series of featured maps and applications. These are the most commonly accessed applications within my portal. So users can very quickly come in and access the information that they need in 3 clicks or less. The last thing I want to draw your attention to is this login here in the top right-hand side. So I actually have an identity within the system, and Jeff alluded to this, right? The system understands who I am. And this is extremely important for 3 reasons. The first is it actually sets my permissions within the system. So whether or not I have the ability to edit, to create content, to use analysis tools, that's all dictated by my named user. The other is the named user is your license for everything that you'll see today. And lastly, that named user actually gives me controlled access to the data. So as Vanessa, as an individual, I belong to a series of groups. And groups are a way of disseminating content and keeping it separate among the different parts of your business. So in this example, we've set up our groups to kind of be mock business units within a pipeline company. So for example, let's say your asset development team was looking at proprietary data and where your latest construction is. They probably want to keep that information segmented from, say, the pipeline integrity team. So these groups allow us to have controlled access to that content and controlled sharing so that you can have different groups of users working within that same environment. Now, if I wanted to discover content in the system, I could drill into one of these groups, or I could actually search the system as a whole. So I could say, I want to search all content, and in this particular case, let's say I'm just looking for a basic facilities map of our assets. What Portal will do is it'll actually return all of the results that I have access to under the security model and that have those keywords. So I can see here that the administrator has already created a facilities map that I can utilize. So when I go ahead and launch that map, I'll notice there's a couple of basic layers in here. So I've actually got, my center line, my pipeline footprint, and I can see in the legend that it's symbolized based on the type of product that I'm moving. And I can also see my pump stations. Now, in a traditional web application that you may have seen in the past, you were kind of constrained to whatever was given to you by the developer. But in Portal, the beauty is I can actually make changes to this map and make it my own. So let's say in this particular case, I'm really only interested in our crewed assets. I can come in to that station series network layer, my center line, and actually apply a filter to the data and say I'm only interested in the commodity being crude oil, and then actually apply that filter to the map. So just like that, I've started to gain some focus and customize the map to my specific needs. Now, let's say I wanted to bring in additional data from the enterprise. For example, I'm missing quite a few facilities along this crude line. Let's use the example of my mainline valves. So what happens is the GIS personnel have loaded the enterprise data into the portal. So now as an end user, I can actually search that library of content by geographic area. So when I type in the word valves, it'll return all data layers that fall within this map and have those keywords. So I'll go ahead and add my valves onto the map, and we should see those mainline valves appear. Now, you'll notice that they've already come in with a predetermined symbology, and if I click on one, the pop-ups are nicely cleaned up and everything is aliased. So I actually have the ability to change these pop-ups as I see fit and also change the symbology. For example, in this case, the valves are a bit large and they're obscuring my pipe. So I can actually come up here and say I'd like to change the style, and this brings me to the Smart Mapping dialog. I ask for additional options, click my symbol, and then actually reduce the size down to 12 to make it a little bit easier to see. The next thing you'll notice is that I can't really see my pump stations anymore. So what I can do is actually drag my valves underneath my pump stations to reorder the layers in the map. So again, we're really empowering the end user to not only consume a web map, but add additional data to it and tweak the way that the data has been displayed for them to really enable that self-service mapping capability. Now, everything that I've shown you so far has been data that resides within the GIS. But as most of you guys probably know, there's a lot of spreadsheets floating around in your organization. So for example, if you notice, I've actually got a CSV here on my desktop. This is some GPS coordinates that came in from the field showing me the exposed locations for my pipeline. So they haven't actually been loaded into the GIS through ArcMap, for example. There's just a simple CSV. So what I can do is actually drag and drop those onto the map, and Portal will automatically plot those onto my map and trigger that smart mapping interface to allow me to make them cartographically appealing. So it'll ask me what attribute I would like to visualize on. We're going to stick with the inspection type. And then I'm just going to change the symbol here to make it a little bit easier to see. So we'll make them blue and quite large so we can really see where those exposed locations are on the map. So we've changed symbology, we've filtered, we've brought in enterprise data, and we have also brought in spreadsheet data. But Jeff talked a lot about Esri curated content and this concept of the living atlas. So for example, let's say we wanted to see how our stream crossings relate to the exposed locations along our pipeline. We could actually bring in that kind of information from the Esri library. So I'll go up to my dialog here and say add, but in this case I'm going to pick browse living atlas layers. When I do that, I'll be taken to this gallery of Esri content. And if we drop down on the categories, you'll see there's a variety of content available to you, everything from imagery to demographic information, landscape, boundaries, etc. In this particular case, I'm just going to search for what I want, and I'm actually going to pull back the USA rivers and streams and actually add that layer to my map. So just like that, I've added nicely symbolized up-to-date data from Esri to enhance my enterprise map. And just like I did earlier in the demo, I'm going to drag this to the bottom so I have them kind of as background information. Now there's a couple of other things I can do here within the Web Map Viewer. For example, let's say I want to be able to remember to always return to this extent. I can create quick bookmarks. For example, I can say this is my crude oil line. That way, anytime I click on that bookmark, I'll be zoomed back to that area. The other thing I can do is search for a location on the map. And this goes beyond just searching for an address. I can also configure it to search on particular attributes within the data. So in this case, I've configured it to be able to search on a valve ID. So if I type in ML119, it will actually zoom me to that particular valve. Now, when I arrive at that location, I notice that I have a gap within my pipeline. And the topographic base map really isn't telling me exactly what I need to know. So what I can do is actually come up to the base map dialog and switch it out so I can visualize the imagery. And the imagery helps me confirm that I do indeed have a facility and that my data there is accurate. So again, we're leveraging that content from Esri to enhance those everyday workflows. So I'm going to switch back to Topo and then actually return to my bookmark. So everything I've done so far has been kind of in memory. I've been working in the browser session within Portal. But let's say I wanted to return to this map tomorrow. I could actually save this to my profile. So again, this is where the concept of identity becomes key. I'm going to say this is my crude operating unit map, and I'd like to save it under my Vanessa Pipe folder. So as I do that, that is stored under my content. Nobody else has access to it unless I decide to share this map with other people. So for example, let's say I decide that this map that I have built can be used by the asset operations group. I can come up here into the share dialog and I'll see those groups that I showed you in the beginning of the demo. I'll share with asset operations and I'll get a pop-up about the underlying layers being shared the same way. Hit OK. And just like that, the asset operations team now has access to that map that I've created. So if I return to my groups and drill down into that asset operations group, you will now see that crude operating unit map that I created. So really, just to kind of summarize, in a matter of less than 10 minutes, we've taken an existing map, added additional enterprise data, spreadsheet data, as well as Esri curated content, and actually saved and shared that with other members of our organization. And keep in mind that the data in these maps represents a live link to your enterprise, so it's always up to date, never static data. So with that, I am going to go ahead and pass it back to Jeff, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about how we start to use these web maps throughout the different components of ArcGIS.
Awesome, Vanessa, thanks. That was great. So the next thing we want to talk about is applications. So the platform offers a vast array of applications that are tightly integrated with the maps you just saw. The concept of these apps wrapping around the maps allows users to have easy access to a whole suite of powerful tools contained within the platform. Because it's easy to create new applications, we can start moving away from that single monolithic web mapping application that tries to include every button and every widget on a single user interface. Now we can create a very focused user experience. We can tailor the applications to perform only those functions necessary for that user's workflow. We feel that users should be able to perform these tasks in 3 clicks or less. This 3-click or less mentality increases adoption of the platform and places the power of GIS in the hands of more individuals within your organization. We shouldn't all have to be GIS professionals to use a simple web mapping application. So as you can see on this slide, we organize the apps in 3 distinct categories. We have the field applications, the back office applications, and what we call the community applications. The field applications cover the full range of tasks for the mobile workforce needs. It includes the ability to track work, navigate to locations along the pipeline, and capture authoritative content at its source. The office application extends the reach of GIS beyond the traditional GIS desktop tools. It enables office workers to consume mapping information into business solutions that they use on a daily basis and enhance those workflows through geography. The community applications allow users to present their maps to a wider audience, both within and outside your organization. One of these applications we're going to highlight today is ArcGIS Maps for Office. Maps for Office allows users to consume the content from the platform directly within the Microsoft Office applications such as Excel and PowerPoint. This brings the power of the maps to the application that the business users use every day. By visualizing the data on the map, we can gain critical insights to the business data, and this often tells a dramatically different story than just looking at the data in a simple grid or graph. This unlocks key spatial relationships between the data sets and bring valuable insights to your users and to your organizations. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Vanessa, and she's going to show us ArcGIS Maps for Office.
Thank you, Jeff. So on my screen, you should see Excel. So really, the idea behind this portion of the demo, or the point that we're trying to get across, is a lot of people are going to interact with the data through the browser. But a lot of people also want to work in the systems that they're familiar with, the systems that they use every single day, like Excel and PowerPoint. So what we've really done is we've actually brought the power of the portal into the context of Excel through something that we call ArcGIS Maps for Office. So on my screen, you see a spreadsheet. And on this spreadsheet, I want to point out a couple of things. The key thing we're looking at here is the inspection status. We're trying to understand which of our valves are overdue in their inspection so we can get to the source of why they might be overdue. The key thing I want you to notice here is that there's actually no lat long within the spreadsheet, right? There's no coordinates. The only key identifier that I have here is a facility ID that identifies the valve. So this will actually help us in plotting that information on the map. So if you notice across the top, I've got an ArcGIS Maps ribbon. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in. So again, this identity portion is absolutely key because in order to pull in content from the portal and in order to contribute to the portal needs to understand who I am. So as I do this, it'll read my identity and it will know my level of permissions. So the next thing I say is, okay, I'd really like to add a map to be able to visualize this information. So when I hit the Add Map button, it will actually read through the spreadsheet and look for any existing tables that already exist within the workbook. So in this particular case, I have my valve inspection status table that you can see here in the background. Now, for the location type, you have a variety of different options. Some of these are more traditional, like coordinates, address, states, right? But we don't have any of that information within the spreadsheet. What we do have is valve IDs. So I've actually created a locator to allow the Excel software to match that valve ID to what's in the GIS and plot it based on those GIS locations. So I'm going to use that valve locator, and it's going to ask me what the key within the spreadsheet is. And I'll tell it it's the facility ID, hit OK. And then the last thing is, how would you like to symbolize it? And as I mentioned early in the demo, we're really interested in the inspection status. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and then add the data onto the map. So this will plot all of my valve inspections quickly on the map. And I can change the way that they're visualized. In this case, I'm mostly concerned with the overdue ones. So I'm actually going to change this symbol to be purple star, and I'm going to make it significantly larger so we can see it better throughout the demo. Okay. Now, keep in mind that the data on this map is actually linked to the spreadsheet. So if I was to click on a particular valve inspection and then hit the Select Row button, it would actually take me to the row within the Excel that's driving that data and populating that pop-up. Now, let's say I wanted to filter the spreadsheet. So let's take a look at just our overdue inspections. When I apply that filter on the spreadsheet, you'll see that it's also reflected on the map. And I have 3 overdue inspections that I need to understand kind of how we got to this status and how we can address the inspection of these valves. Now, it's really nice to see that I have these on the map and visualize them in space, but I don't have a whole lot of context, right? I'd like to bring in additional data to give me some context as to where these are. So what I can do is go to the Add Data from ArcGIS button and then select My Organization. That way I can bring back any data within my portal that I have access to. So I'm going to bring in that station series network or that pipeline footprint that I have access to within portal, and then actually zoom to that particular location. So I can bring in as much additional portal data as I want to provide me context, right? I could bring in valves, I could bring in the nearest field office, whatever other information I think would help me tell the story. So I'm really truly connected to the portal from Excel. Now, let's say I actually wanted to contribute data back to the portal. So I would like to add these overdue inspections to the map that I created in the first part of the demo so that I can give the inspection foreman some context. I'm actually going to remove the station series network just so that we have just those 3 stars. And then what I would do is I would actually come up here and say, I'd like to share this layer. And this would bring me to a dialog to actually publish this data into my portal. So I would call this overdue inspections, give it a tag so people can search on it, and then determine the groups that I'd actually want to share it with. I'd hit the share button, and then this would automatically publish to my portal. In the interest of time, I've actually already published it to the portal. So if we go to the My Content tab, you'll actually see alongside the map I created earlier, I have this overdue inspections layer that has been pushed up from Excel. So I can return to my original map, open it up in the map viewer, and then actually add that information that I just created in Excel. So I'm going to go ahead and search for the word overdue, add that to the map, and you should see those 3 overdue inspections appear on my map. Now, you'll probably notice that my map is looking a little bit cluttered. So I'm going to switch focus a little bit, and I'm not so concerned about my rivers and streams anymore or my exposed locations. Now I'm really more concerned as to why these valves have not yet been inspected. So I'm going to toggle off those layers and actually resave my map. And now I'll be able to continue to use this map throughout all the portions of the ArcGIS stack, including the mobile devices, which I'm going to switch back to Jeff so he can tell you a little bit more about how you utilize these maps within the mobile space.
Excellent. Thanks, Vanessa. So let's take so far we've taken a look at accessing maps to the browser with the self-service mapping. We've integrated the maps with the back office solution. So now let's take a closer look at some of those mobile-specific workflows. So the platform includes a whole suite of mobility applications tailored to different mobility use cases. We start with our workforce application. Workforce helps you manage your field work assignments and the geographic contents. And you can kind of think of this as a quarterback of the whole mobile tool set. From those work assignments, we can link to the Navigator application. And as the name implies, Navigator enables turn-by-turn directions to any location along the pipeline. The Navigator application can also be used with your own custom road network to include access roads and the drivable portions of the pipeline right-of-way. Once the field user reaches their destination, we have 2 applications that are focused on capturing data in the field. The collector application, which is more of a geocentric capture tool, and Survey 123, which is more of a form-centric experience for the end users. We also include the data capture suite. We also include in the data capture suite our drone to map software product, which allows you to process raw images from aerial drones and generate both 2D and 3D information products. And to monitor all these field activities, we utilize the Operation Dashboard application to view the progress of all ongoing field work. But often we want to simply view maps that we have in our portal out in the out-of-the-office environment. The Explorer application allows anyone in the organization to access maps from the platform on their mobile device. So let's take a little closer look at Explorer for ArcGIS. As I mentioned, Explorer for ArcGIS was designed for those mobility workflows that require read-only access to the maps. Users can easily search, find, and mark up maps, and then share those markups back with the rest of the organization. So let's jump in for a quick demo and see how Explorer for ArcGIS works with the maps we've been creating this morning. Vanessa?
Thank you, Jeff. So on my screen, you should be able to see my iPhone device with a variety of Esri apps that Jeff just touched upon. But today, I really want to focus on the one in the top left-hand side, which is Explorer for ArcGIS. So if I launch Explorer, you'll see those same groups that we saw within the portal. So you can really think about Explorer as being your mobile access point into Portal. I can access all the maps that I've created in asset operations, for example, through that Explorer environment. And the way that it does that is through that identity. So if I hit the hamburger button in the top left-hand side, you'll notice I'm logged in with that same identity. And thanks to that identity, I have a concept of favorite maps where I can actually pick the maps that I use most frequently. And then I can also access my own content. So here we can actually see that crude operating unit map that I created in the early part of the demo. So the information will draw just like it did on your browser. We've got our pump stations, our valves, and we should have our overdue inspections as well. So as these come in, I can interact with the map. And again, it's connected, so it's all live data coming from the portal. So I could click on one of these areas and I would get pop-ups just like I would in the portal browser. When I hit the information button, it'll ask me what information I need, and in this case I want to know specific information about the valve whose inspection is overdue. So that way I can view all the attributes just like I did in the web browser, as well as any attachments, to understand what might be happening at that particular asset. So for example, if I'm in the field office speaking with the inspection foreman, I can pull up this map very quickly and easily on my device, my mobile device, whether it be a tablet or whether it be a cell phone. And then I also have the ability to mark up. So I can say we've got one here, what's going on, and then I can actually share that information with other people. So I can come up to this dialog and actually share the map two ways. I can either share a link to that portal map or actually a static image of that map. So really we've taken the maps and the data that we've created throughout the demo and brought it all together, accessing it from a mobile device. So the really key thing here is that everything I've done has been with out-of-the-box Esri technology, so I didn't have to develop anything extra in order to be able to view those maps on a mobile device. I simply had to sign into Explorer, and that granted me access into my portal, giving me kind of additional visibility into my data in real time. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jeff.
Excellent. Thanks, Vanessa. So the last part of the presentation here, we're quite fortunate. We have Jacob Barracarden from Spectra Energy on the line. He's the director of the Operation Business Systems at Spectra, and he's going to show us a couple of examples of what Spectra has been able to do with their platform and enable this mapping technology for the folks within their organization. Jacob, you're on the line.
Thank you, Jeff. We here at Spectra Energy, we wanted to do exactly what Jeff and Vanessa was talking about early in the presentation. We wanted to use the portal technology to empower all our stakeholders to create their own maps, add custom data, and start using the map as a collaboration tool within their groups in a secured environment. We went live with the Spectra Energy GIS portal last year, and what you see here is the landing page of our GIS portal. All our stakeholders now use this portal to get access to all our data layers, maps, web apps, and dashboards. Jeff, can you go to the next slide, please?
Absolutely.
We have used this platform to create specific map viewers for various stakeholders within our organization, like operations, pipeline integrity, compliance, public awareness, government affairs, 911, 811, environmental, etc. We also have used this platform to create dashboards and web apps for all our users within the organization. I would like to share with you a couple of examples where we were able to use this technology to quickly meet some of our business needs. Jeff, can you go to the next slide?
Absolutely.
The first example is this anomaly investigation app. For us, anomaly investigation, when we do it in a large scale, requires coordination between several internal departments such as pipeline integrity, engineering and construction, right-of-way, environmental, and outside vendors. The challenge here was that information was being exchanged between everybody using spreadsheets, version control was an issue, and data was getting outdated. So people were looking at different spreadsheets at different times. The amount of data, the count of the anomalies was different. So we wanted to, the goal was to create an app that would keep all this data in one place and provide an app that gives them access to this information easily, along with all the additional information they need to help them in the decision making. The best part was that we were able to create this app and put it in production within a week's time. And it provided live, accurate data with updates done behind the scenes to all the relevant groups, both internal and external within our organization. The access to this app once again was controlled using the the groups that we have within the portal technology. And the second example, just can you go to the next one? The second example I would like to share is the anomaly editor app. This once again was created within a week's time and deployed. This was a data collection app, not like the previous one. That one was a read-only app. This one was a data collection app, which we created for the right-of-way agents in the field to draw access roads, easements, and collect notes. These updates were stored in our central repository in real time, thus providing this information in real time to all the relevant parties, all the other agents along the pipeline. And we could use this data to create landowner track sketches here in the Houston office. While they are collecting data here in the Houston office, people were sitting and creating those land track sketches that we could use it for getting permits or any other things that we would like to do for that anomaly investigation. Once again, access to both these apps was controlled using groups within the portal. And the learning curve for these apps was not much, because it is the platform is the icons and the tools are very user friendly. So there was not much effort on our side to deploy these applications, and it was used heavily by all the guys, all the stakeholders. To close out, this platform, the portal platform, has allowed us to resolve business pain points in timely and effective fashion. That's all I had to share, Jeff.
Excellent, Jacob. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. So we have a couple of slides left to wrap up the webinar, and I want to show you this one because, oftentimes when we look at this this technology, we think about it as a shift from what we've been doing in the past, and it's really not that at all. Most of us have been maintaining the pipeline records and what we would consider the system of record for years now and within the GIS. And really what we've been showing you today is an extension of that. So you have your system of record at the core. These are your core assets and where they're located. And really what we're showing you today is what we consider the system of engagement. How do we unlock that data that's in your system of record and push that out to the rest of the organization through the platform? So both through the web apps, through the office applications, and mobile applications, we're now giving people access to that data that they never had before. There's other ways to expand the platform too. You can see things like real-time tracking, geo-event, and our Insights application. And keep an eye out through the rest of the year because we'll have additional webinars that dive into some of that functionality that really complete the whole picture of what we're doing with the platform today. So I know a lot of you have probably seen something today that was interesting or want to get started or want to increase the adoption of your platform. Well, the good news is we have a whole guide that helps you get started with your platform or increase adoption of your platform. I've included the URL to the document up above, but don't worry, we're going to have this webinar recorded and on our website, as well as hopefully include that URL in the post-webinar survey as well. But we're here to help you in any way we can to maximize your investment in our technology, and we have a lot of resources to help you get started and to help you increase what you've already done and expand the use of the platform. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Tom. We've been collecting some questions as we go, and Tom will moderate the Q&A session.
Thanks, Jeff. We do have some questions, but before we answer some of them, let me mention that there will be a short survey that will pop up right after the webinar ends today. We would really appreciate it if you'd take a few minutes to give us your feedback, and we'll use your suggestions as we design the other future seminars in this pipeline industry series. Here is a question for you, Vanessa, please. The question is it possible for non-ArcGIS users to print maps from the web portal? If so, how much control do they have over the output format compared to ArcMap? It's sort of related to another question we got. Perhaps you can answer them both at the same time. We do a lot of exporting maps to either printed hard copy, PDF, or JPEG. What are the options for this? Vanessa?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Tom. So what we do find is as portal adoption grows, you will see a bit of a drop-off in the number of PDF maps, and a lot of times that's just because you get better business decisions with the live data. But that being said, there is always a need for paper maps in some capacity, right? And some people just prefer to work with a PDF. So we have incorporated print functionality into all of our apps. So in the map viewer that I was in earlier, there's actually a print button. And what that print button does is it essentially takes a screenshot of the map and a legend, and then it actually places that into a template. Now you can choose to use kind of the out-of-the-box ArcGIS Online printing or portal printing, which will just put it in a basic frame, or you can actually point that to an MXD to use as a template. So for example, if you had a certain company logo and frame and scale bar that you wanted to include, you could actually point it to an MXD, and it would essentially take the map from portal and put it inside the data frame of that MXD and then generate a PDF of that. So you do have the ability to kind of use a little bit more advanced print functionality rather than just taking a screenshot.
Thanks, Vanessa. Here's another technical question, hopefully you can answer. Is customizing searches, for instance, valves, ILI searches, an administrative function performed by IT or the map consumer?
Absolutely. So the answer is really both. So there's two ways to actually do it. The first is it can actually be configured within the map itself. So when the end user creates the map, in the settings they can choose to say, I want to be able to search off of a valve ID or a route name, whatever they choose. If they do it that way, if it's done by the end user, it's only usable within that web map. Now, if it's done by IT, so if the GIS personnel actually create a locator on the server, then it will percolate to the entire portal. So any new web app that's created, any application that's created will actually have that search functionality built in. So it kind of depends on whether you need it to be available across the portal or just in one specific map.
Thank you. Jeff, a question for you. In your experience, how can GIS professionals best facilitate the adoption of simple mapping?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, and I think from my experience, the thing that's important to remember is, You know, as GIS professionals, we often think that the map and the application has to be very complicated and have lots of buttons and every widget that I could download from the Esri site. But sometimes simpler is better. And never underestimate the power of a simple web mapping application for somebody who doesn't use maps every day. Like that Maps for Office thing that Vanessa was showing where we could just plot those valve inspections. You know, if you give that to somebody who doesn't use maps on a daily basis and is trying to figure that out just by looking at Excel, it's like you just created fire for that person, right? It's difficult to imagine in our minds as GIS professionals that that's that amazing, but when you put it into the hands of people who don't use it every day, you'll be amazed how powerful it actually is. So I guess to summarize, you know, don't think anything's too simple. Those are the things that have the widest adoption of the platform.
Thanks for that, Jeff. Back to you, Vanessa. A question about searches is customizing. I'm sorry, I think we chatted that one through. I want to go to the next one. And can you go in depth on the valve locator tool?
Yeah, so I assume that question is probably referring to the Esri Maps for Office component. So with that valve locator, essentially, for those of you that are familiar with desktop, what I did was create a single field locator based off of that valve ID, and then actually publish that to my server. And when I did that, the portal can then read it and utilize it across all of the apps, and that's how it gets utilized within ArcGIS Maps for Office. And I know that's a little bit more on the technical side, so if you guys have further questions about that, whoever asked that question, feel free to reach out to us and I can kind of show you how that's done.
Okay. One more. Does the collector app have offline capabilities?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, it does. So really today the scope of the webinar was to kind of focus on the simple mapping pieces, but we do have a lot of mobile solutions, including collector, that work in a disconnected environment. So absolutely.
And Jeff, back to you for one, please. Can you do linear referencing in Portal?
Yeah, with some of our new extensions that we've recently released, the ArcGIS pipeline referencing is probably the easiest one to adopt. The ArcGIS pipeline referencing has a number of extensions to the ArcGIS server that can be consumed as a REST endpoint through a widget in the web apps. So we've actually got another demo where we can locate by station and offset, or click on the map and get the station offset of that location, and it's simply making a call to the server using APR to resolve the location and send it back to the end user. That could be done with our tools. It could also be done as a widget hitting things like, you know, a legacy PODS database or a UPDM database as well. It's a fairly straightforward tool that can be built as a widget, and those widgets then can be consumed with any of the apps on the portal.
And a related question on linear referencing that just came in. Can we locate events according to linear referencing in ArcGIS Online?
Yeah, so I'm imagining they're talking about sort of those virtual events where we're not actually spatializing or don't have a spatial object. And so there are various ways to do that. A lot of people actually will create a secondary copy of those events and actually place them as point features in the portal and then use them that way. Or again, using that sort of widget methodology, create a geoprocessing tool or a piece of Python script that will take just a location reference to an object and then place that geographically on the map.
Okay. Thanks for that, Jeff. Vanessa, back to you. Can you import KMZs into Portal, or will there be future support for this feature?
So yes, you can actually upload KMLs and KMZs into the portal. So through My Content, you could go in and say browse to file and actually grab that KMZ, and it would turn it into a layer within the portal. You may not have all the full-fledged functionality with respect to analysis and such that you would with a traditional GIS layer, but you can absolutely visualize those KMZs within Portal.
Super, thanks. And one more for you about Explorer. How does Explorer Access work when only a few employees are named users while the rest are verified as general users in the company intranet through single sign-on?
So because Explorer falls kind of in the mobile suite of applications, it will require a named user in order to view those maps, in order to save the concept of favorites. So only those employees that are named users will have access to Explorer.
I think
Okay.
maybe, Vanessa, we could also mention too at 10.5 we do have now the concept of a read-only user. So there's kind of two user levels in the portal. So a read-only user could be also coupled with the Explorer application.
Thank you both. And Vanessa, back to you on the KMZ. A follow-on question came in. Can you import a KMZ through a widget?
You cannot out of the box. We do have clients that have built widgets to do that, kind of like a drag and drop experience, or a widget that allows you to browse to it. Right now it's only supported in the My Content portion of the portal, but you could create your own widget to do that.
Okay. And Jeff, I think the last question that I see here is it necessary to have ArcGIS online? If we just had ArcGIS server, what would we be missing out on?
So really you can kind of think of the portal with a large P and ArcGIS Online as equivalent products. One is located behind the firewall on your servers, on your environment. The other one is in our cloud space. But everything we showed you today is really equal from a functionality standpoint, whether it's located on your own servers or access to the cloud. We also have folks that are using those in a bit of a hybrid environment. So the controlled content is on their portal behind their firewall, but layers that they need to share with contractors or outside agencies, maybe they use ArcGIS Online to host some of that content instead of sort of open up in a DMZ or poking a hole through the firewall. So we see operators using both the same, but from a functionality standpoint, they're equivalent.
Thanks, Jeff. We'd like to especially thank Jacob and Spectra for their kindness in participating in this webinar, and thanks again to Jeff and Vanessa for their fine contributions as well. And thanks to every one of you for joining us. We appreciate your giving us some of your time today. We will send you an email with a link to the recording and hope you have a great day.